I just finished writing today a book review, and you can't see it, but I'm holding up a book. It's called Concho by Denzel Holmes. Jessica and I were at this arts fair a couple of weekends ago in a Texas town, and I saw this fellow. He had a stand and he was selling his books, and I asked him, "Let me buy your best book." He's probably 75, 80 years old. He started writing when he retired, and I read the book, and I recently wrote a Western book, and uh, his book is just absolutely flat. It has predictable things. It doesn't have that many overt cliches, but by the same token, there's nothing that enlivens it. And I end the review saying, a critic has to ask, why did this person feel that they needed to share this information with the world? I mean, the story as it's told has been told so many times in old Western serials, in Western five and dime novels going back 130, 140 plus years. And Again, it's not a terrible book. It's actually better than anything that a David Foster Wallace or a Dave Eggers or a Thomas Pynchon ever wrote. And I would argue that, against any MFA hack who wanted to talk about it. Like I said, I had a guy who was a critic who didn't, a few weeks ago that I interviewed, that was trying to make a case for Foster Wallace is a great writer. This Denzel Holmes is a better writer, but he's not a particularly good writer. I think I gave the book ultimately a 60 out of 100. So it fails by a little bit. The first half is okay, solid, and the second half just tanks because nothing ever happens. But that's a good example of someone here. Uh, you this is a book that could have had a lot of subversions if someone had a more original mind. You could have taken a lot of the dramatic setups, a lot of the characterizations, and you could subvert things. You could subvert a lot of the Western tropes. You could have expanded and made it a deeper novel beyond just the Western. And this is one of the things that genre writers don't do, because in order to be a genre, for example, a Western book has to be set in the West of America, usually within the 19th century, after Lewis and Clark and before the closing of the West, the Indian massacres at the end of the 19th century. It has to have cowboys, it has to have Indians and or banditos and or the U.S. cavalry or army. It has to be set somewhere west of the Mississippi. Usually Oregon and Washington aren't considered part of the West. So the Pacific Northwest is generally out. So it's California to Texas